Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, welcome to the Rambling Rabbit Hole. I nearly forgot the podcast name there for a sec, Jack, because it's been 3 weeks since we've done one. But we
That's
are
okay.
here. We are back. We've got a couple new topics that we're going to shoot through. And today, Jack, we're going to be looking at the unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves to always be our best.
Interesting one.
Which is a very nicely worded topic for today.
I
So,
like it,
yeah, any initial thoughts that come at you with that one, Jack?
Repeat it to me again. The unexpected.
Unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves to be our best, essentially, to be perfect almost, you know?
Initial thoughts is that that's super common. Like, I think that's super common with pretty much everyone. Or at some stage in our lives when we're not fully how would I word it? When we're not fully self-sufficient in terms of not fully comfortable with who we are, what we like, what we want, what we need. I think it's super common for us to compare and despair against other people
Absolutely.
and things like that. So yeah, just as a brief response to that, I think it's very common,
Yeah,
especially in terms of modern day and social media and things like that.
absolutely, man. I thought it would be a good place to start this episode back as well, because I
Hmm.
think that me and you have been beating ourselves up over the last few weeks. For
Yeah,
not
yeah,
getting an episode out. And I think this really does speak to how we've been treating ourselves over the last couple of weeks, maybe not actually getting
absolutely.
down and actually filming something. And how that, even though you might, be aware of these things, of, the unrealistic expectations you put on yourself, we still end up falling into doing it, right? It's a very hard thing to keep conscious of, really, at all times. And I think, again, even that is just unrealistic, isn't it? The idea that we can constantly be monitoring ourselves 24/7. I mean, we can catch ourselves in the moments, and I think that's a very different thing, isn't it? Being able to catch yourself and be like, hang on, actually, I did this, and I'm very proud of that, and I made it out of bed today. And, it's about, the small wins, I think. People don't count the small wins as much.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing about that is it's the small wins that kind of add up to the big wins, right? So it doesn't tend to be, life's not always like, yeah, I'm doing fucking great. I'm on top of things. I'm smashing it. It's not always like that. But in taking appreciation for the, like you say, the small wins, that can kind of keep that ball rolling of being in a good mental state. um and I think that sometimes even when you do catch yourself and become aware that you're being a bit hard on yourself, for example, I knew that I'd moved house, I knew that I was busy with work, I knew that I was, you know, setting things up in the new house and settling in. I knew all of those things, but there was still that side of me that was like, disappointed that there wasn't certain things that I'd kept on top of. So it's like a fight between two selves almost. I knew rationally that I had a lot going on and it wasn't an issue. I knew that you um you didn't have any irritation towards me about the fact we hadn't been able to get one done, but there was still that side of me that was like, "Oh, man," like, disappointed that we wasn't able to carry it on, um, kind of with consistency. But again, that happens, that's life.
Yeah, I think it's what you do after the fact, isn't it? And how you plan on going forward once these things have happened, right? So
100%, yeah.
inevitably, we're not going to be able to do this every week, are we? Like, we're not going to be able to, like, realistically speaking,
Yeah, things happen.
yeah,
Yeah, you
life
don't know what's
happens.
gonna happen, like,
Precisely.
anything could happen that throws
Yeah.
a spanner in the works.
Yeah.
Um So yeah, having a good support structure, but a kind of an interesting thing that I thought of there, um, in terms of how things go mentally
Mm.
is that say for example with this situation it can be that we've missed a few videos, or it can be that you've missed a gym session, or
Yeah.
you've missed guitar practice, band practice, whatever. It could be a number of things. um what can then happen is that I feel that the negative thoughts can almost sometimes then get their claws into you. So you can miss something, and then that negative mindset can creep in of, oh, you've
Mm.
missed it
It
now.
snowballs for sure.
uh yeah, and you can start to make excuses like, oh well, oh, we don't have to do this podcast. Oh, we did, we had a goal of getting to 30. Oh, well, it's not, I've got other priorities. It doesn't have to happen. You can start talking yourself out of things very
Mm.
easily. And I think when that happens and you do talk yourself out of it, for example, if I was like, oh, do you know what, Dave, I'm just too busy at the minute. I can't do it. That's where like regrets can come in, especially if it's something that you did really want to do, which this is.
Yeah.
And when you have, like, don't get me wrong, one instance of that isn't going to be too bad, especially throughout the span of your life. But I think when things stack up and you start to make excuses and not do the things you need to do.
Mm.
So for me, that would look like working out, going to work because I need an income to support my family and
Yeah.
myself. You can easily let it barrel roll and get out of hand. And over the course of a long period of time, that can, I believe, turn someone into a person or individual that can't really be bothered to do a lot, because over time, you've decreased your tolerance of things. You've decreased your ability to do multiple things. Um, and the thing is, doing nothing will tend to equate to, a decline in mental health. When I say doing nothing, I mean literally never doing anything over a long period of time.
Yeah.
I think can equate to your mental health deteriorating, because we have to have something, you know?
We have to train ourselves to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's fundamentally what it comes down to, right? It's, you see, people who spend their whole lives talking down to themselves and not catching themselves in the moments where they could actually say something positive about their situation or their circumstance. Or yeah, it very
I
much
think
adds
it
up. As you say, it snowballs, and then next thing you know, it's part of your personality. You just become a pessimistic individual. And I think the, we're the best at it, mate. Humans are the
yeah.
best at being self-critical. It's built into us, especially in societies that are hyper productive, like in Western countries. I think you're good,
Sorry, I
mate.
just needed to close her out of the room.
You don't.
So where was
Don't
we?
worry. So you don't put any expectations to get your family out the room any quicker than you need to, Jack.
I'm just there going like this. You can't see it, but my hand's down here and I'm going.
Yeah,
I had something to add if you want to
of
pick up
course,
from
do it,
me
man.
responding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I was going to add in terms of you were discussing people's kind of inner talk, and
Mm.
that if you're used to talking yourself down, it can be very difficult to face obstacles and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say that, like, the sad reality of that is that sometimes, unfortunately, especially in terms of when we talk about support structures, unfortunately, sometimes people grow up from birth not having good support structures, so they might that kind of inner positive voice might not even exist to them. It can be
Yeah.
that individuals are that kind of low confidence that they've never had that parental figure that picked them up.
Mm.
How do you develop that if you've never had it? It can still be done. I'm just saying that,
Becomes alien. It's a foreign
yeah,
concept, isn't it? The idea of positive self-talk, being able to
it's a
boost
skill, right?
yourself.
Like
It's a skill.
anything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a skill.
And it can be hard to start. I feel like when I was very much trying to do this, and I really started hammering it in a time of my life when I needed it the most, and it benefited me hugely. But the thing is actually just feeling it, is getting started with it. I think is with
Yeah,
actually just You know what? I think the biggest problem is that people try and logic their way through it, and that's
Yeah.
something that I did for the longest time. Was I'm a very logical person,
Mm.
and I like to think through things and fact my way to feeling good sometimes. But the truth is, you can't really. Sometimes you just need to have a heart to heart with yourself and be
Yeah.
like,
And sometimes you gotta
yeah,
just ride it out as well.
yeah. Sometimes you just
Um,
need to feel it, and actually like have a real conversation with your inner child, with yourself, and
yeah,
yeah.
I think that there are times where, and I've definitely experienced this, where you can be in a really low mood and it can turn around
Mm,
with the right given either stimulus or not. When I say stimulus, I mean like actively doing something. I'm not talking about like taking drugs to alter your kind of
mm,
state of thinking, but actively doing something when you're in a low mood
yeah,
can turn it around. But there are also times when you've just got to ride it out for whatever reason. You might not even be consciously aware of the reason that you're in a really low mood.
yeah,
And so you've just got to kind of accept that that's the way that you feel at the minute and just carry on doing what you need to do. Um, I felt like that recently, and truthfully, I can only really put it down to the seasonal change that's happening. The last week, I've just not really felt on it.
mm,
I've gone from waking up many days a week at 5:30 in the morning and being absolutely fine with it throughout the summer to as it's got darker this past week, I have definitely woke up and felt like I could go back to sleep right now. And then paired with that, I've just physically not felt switched on. I've just felt a bit lethargic and like I could nap a bit more. I could have a lie down in the afternoon and be feel pretty good about that.
yeah,
Just not really doing anything. So yeah, it's interesting.
yeah.
I guess to throw a question back at you, and for
Mm.
anybody that's watching, what I would say is where would you look at getting started with that um, kind of positive inner talk, should we call it, or rationalizing, turning things around? Where did you start with that, and how did you start with it?
It started with writing. It started
Okay.
with, and this was something that I learned from you. This was something
Mm,
that was very much spearheaded by your process of coming off antidepressants,
yeah.
and something that I definitely incorporated quite heavily into the time when I was reducing.
Okay.
Um, was your head's a bloody jungle, mate. You need to write your shit down, and
Yeah.
that also, yeah, that also applies to you know saying nice things about yourself, because as soon as you
Mm,
start writing them down, you create a record of things
yeah.
you can then look back on. And boy, oh boy, doesn't that help on the days where you don't feel like saying a bloody nice thing about yourself.
Yeah, it was massive for me. Even
Mm,
now, like I'm generally my mental health is that much better now that I don't tend to, or I haven't in a long time, let's call it journaling or just writing stuff down. I haven't done it in a long time.
likewise.
But but when I was doing it and I would look back, especially if I'd wrote down lists or goals,
Mm,
and I looked back and realized, oh, I've accomplished every single one of those. I'd be like, wow.
mm.
You don't realize it unless it's out there on paper because you can't our brains, or at least my brain isn't capable of creating a list and then going back to it and ticking it off. Like we forget things, and
No, no
it's
one does.
easy to
Yeah,
forget. Yeah, it's
it's very
easy to
chaotic.
forget. Yeah, positives. It's very easy to forget positives. So I think um, I'd say it's especially with because I can't really speak on behalf of women, but especially for men, I think it like the whole journaling thing or just writing goals down and then looking back over a period of time is quite a positive thing to do. It's not something I'd ever done before, but once I did start doing it,
Mm,
and like we said, once you do start looking back, months later, it's very fulfilling and
mm.
it builds a lot of self confidence as well. I think.
It takes the unrealistic and makes it realistic, I think, is
Yeah.
fundamentally like what it does, especially within today's topic of
Mm.
expectations. It shows you all the realistic wins that you've archived throughout your journey, right? And I think that
Yeah.
absolutely just, there's nothing more rewarding than just seeing that unfold in real
And
time.
it's factual as well.
Yeah.
It's there. There's the evidence.
You are
It's
the
right
evidence.
there in
Yeah.
front of you. You can't. There's no muddling it up in your brain. Oh, did I achieve that?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's there. You wrote it down.
Mm.
Past you have wrote it down for future you is a good way of looking
Yeah.
at it.
That's absolutely it. Yeah. That's how I looked
But
at it, man. It was almost quite weird when you frame it through that lens, because you almost feel like, oh, this is a different person when it gets too far away from
yeah,
the start of your journaling
I
journey or anything you
think
write.
you are
Yeah.
when you go and revisit it. The
Mm.
fact is you are a
Yeah.
different person then, and it's like okay, cool. This is where we are now.
Mm.
That's where we were before. I'm, I think most of the time you'll be like, I'm pretty happy with that. If you're actively looking to improve, don't get me wrong, you could go the other way. Like you never know what's going to happen in life, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you have it as the mindset of, okay, I'm going to set out a few goals here. I'm just going to write them down and I'll put it to one side, leave it for months, years, whatever, and just go and look back.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Got a
I
question for
think,
you before we finish
oh,
off, though.
yep, go on then, yep.
Um, what is your most recent win, big or small?
Um, I'm gonna go for a really what would probably be minute to some people, but for me was actually a massive win.
Perfect.
I could have drawn off a few there, but one that I'll use the one that sprung to my mind straight away.
Perfect.
So obviously, as you know, I've moved house. I'm not a DIY guy. Like I've got a lot of
Nice.
practical things that I can do that transfer over to life, but DIY is not one of them. So when we moved in, I was like, I want to mount the TV on the wall. Like I just wanted it to look really nice, homely, and slick and cool, right? So yeah, for the first time in my life, I drilled holes in a wall, like found the stud of the wall so that I had something to securely drill it into. Put the plugs in, mounted the TV, and it actually went really well. So that was extremely fulfilling for me as somebody who is not that I'm not good. It's just not really something I've done.
Yeah, you would
Um,
have shied away from it in the past, kind of thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I nearly did, though I was umming and ahhing, and I was looking, and I was, like, doing the spirit level and stuff like that, and when I drilled into the wall, like, one of the plugs kind of out of the 4 plugs, one of them, I think, went too far in and didn't really secure, but when I researched online, there was people saying, "Oh, as long as I get 1 good plug into, like, concrete and it's secure, I'm happy that it will hold because obviously the rest is gonna go into drywall, which isn't very sturdy at all." So the
Yeah.
fact that I got 3 good ones into concrete, like I was really happy with it, and it's been absolutely fine as well. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome, man.
that would be my win, and I'll shoot it back at you.
Oh God,
Have you
yeah.
got a recent one that comes to mind?
You know what? Yeah, it was yesterday, mate. It was
Cool.
the gym session that you programmed for me, and
Okay, cool.
yeah, I'm just off the top of my head, I was super proud coming out of that session. I can't even
Good
lie,
man, yeah.
like, because I never even felt like going to the gym that night, and I came away from
Yeah.
that session with just so much energy. It was such a win for me, and like I've been that gym so many times, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think I think yesterday as well, because I knew we were going to be doing this topic at some point as well. I
Yeah.
think for me, knowing that, I kind of had it in my head. I was like, actually, I got to the car and I was like, actually, Dave, that was a fucking win. That was a sick session. You put in some work there, and
Yeah.
you take this time and the rest of the evening to be proud of yourself for it. So,
Definitely,
and
man.
I fucking did, man. So,
I think as well that the sessions that and anyway, this applies to me. I can't
yeah,
speak for everyone, but the sessions that I really don't want to do and get done are normally the best sessions.
yeah,
There's something about knowing that you don't want to do something, but still doing it that builds a lot of self confidence and fulfillment.
yeah,
And
absolutely, man.
I guess like just to wrap up this episode, um, I would ask you, what do you think people can put in place today, like right now, that can benefit them in overcoming like self doubt? Like if you had to choose kind
Mm.
of one thing,
I would say make a list. Doesn't have to be
mm,
journaling as such, because obviously journaling can be like on in your mind, the idea of journaling can seem like quite a big commitment, but like it takes moments to just get a piece of paper and just write out what you're proud of. And you can do it. People, I think, very much shy away from doing this. But it's helped me, man. Like, make a list, write some stuff down, scribble a bit, just put thoughts onto paper. It's the best way to visualize, to see exactly, where you're at and what you've accomplished and
Yeah,
where
I
you might
think
want to
it's
go.
yeah, it's a simple but
Mm,
very effective technique.
yeah. Helps me every time, man.
Brilliant. Right, well, thank you everyone for watching. If you've made it this far to the end of the video, please consider subscribing, check out our other videos. We've got quite a few up now. And yeah, take care. Peace.